people always assume the night shift is nothing but boredom stretched thin across empty hours. I thought the same when I started at Riley's Quick Stop, a weathered gas station and convenience store perched on the outskirts of Tucson, Arizona, where the city lights fade into the endless saguaro-studded desert, and the nearest excitement is a coyote howl or a distant semi rumbling down the interstate. I was 23 years old, fresh out of community college with a degree in nothing useful, scraping together rent for a cramped studio apartment that smelled faintly of mildew and regret. My resume was a joke: odd jobs at fast food joints and a summer stocking shelves at a big box store, so when Riley's offered midnight to 8, I grabbed it. The first few weeks were exactly what I expected, a slow drip of time marked by the hum of fluorescent lights, the occasional chime of the door as a trucker grabbed coffee or a pack of smokes, and long stretches where I rearranged candy bars just to stay awake. Energy drinks became my best friend, lottery tickets my only interaction with hope, and the rare customer who wandered in half asleep, mumbling about directions or a forgotten wallet. It was the kind of job where your thoughts echo louder than footsteps, drifting to bills, ex-girlfriends, or what life might look like if I ever escaped this sun-baked town. But I didn't complain. No micromanaging boss lurking in the shadows. No coworkers to force small talk or share shifts with. Just me, the bank of security monitors flickering in the corner, and a sturdy tire iron wedged under the counter for emergencies I never imagined would come. That Friday night in late October changed everything, the air outside crisp with the first real bite of autumn, even in the desert where days still scorched but nights dropped sharp like a knife. The old space heater behind the counter had been wheezing since midnight, pushing out air that was barely warmer than the chill seeping through the plate glass windows, fogging the edges where the neon open sign buzzed faintly. Around 2:45 in the morning, I was lost in a tattered paperback western someone had abandoned by the coffee station, pages yellowed, smelling of stale smoke, when the door chime let out a single, lazy ding, soft as a whisper in the quiet. I looked up casually, expecting another insomniac or road-weary driver. The man who stepped in was in his mid-40s, wearing a faded denim jacket over a plain gray tee, khaki pants that looked pressed, and boots so clean they reflected the harsh overhead lights. He wasn't twitchy like a meth head or swaying like a drunk. He moved with the unhurried confidence of someone browsing a library, the kind of guy who'd vanish in a crowd at a hardware store checkout or waiting for a bus that was always late. But the instant he crossed the threshold, something primal twisted in my gut, not because of any action, but the sheer wrongness of his presence, like a shadow that didn't quite match the light source. He didn't head for the coolers or the shelves. He simply walked, hands jammed deep in his pockets, circling the aisles in a slow, methodical loop that took him past the motor oil, the beef jerky display, the rows of chips without once reaching out to touch anything. His footsteps were muffled on the worn linoleum, but each one landed with purpose, echoing faintly in the empty store like distant thunder rolling over the desert hills. After one full circuit, he approached the counter, stopping a comfortable 3 feet away, and offered a smile that didn't reach his eyes, polite, rehearsed, the kind a salesman practices in the mirror. "You're Cody, right?" he said, voice smooth and low, carrying just enough volume to cut through the fridge hum without effort. My mind raced for context. Maybe he was a regular I'd rung up a dozen times without remembering, or a friend of a friend from the apartment complex. But then he continued, casual as commenting on the weather, "You live in that little cul-de-sac off Speedway, near the middle school? The one with the busted street light at the end?" My heart slammed against my ribs like a trapped animal. I wasn't wearing a name tag. Policy was to keep them in the back for night shifts to avoid exactly this kind of creep factor. I never chatted with customers beyond "That'll be $8.50" or "Pump 3's ready." Hell, I barely made eye contact most nights. I blinked, trying to play it cool, but my voice came out tighter than I wanted. He wasn't done. "Your mom still drives that silver sedan to the clinic downtown? Runs smooth, doesn't it? Reliable old thing." The words hung in the air, heavy as the desert dust outside. I swallowed hard, tasting copper. What do you want?" I managed, aiming for firm but landing on a crack that betrayed every ounce of fear bubbling up. He didn't answer the question. Instead, he glanced up slowly, deliberately, toward the security camera mounted in the corner above the register, its red light blinking steadily like a watchful eye, holding the gaze for a beat too long, as if memorizing the angle, the lens, the blind spots. Then, without another word, without buying a pack of gum or even nodding goodbye, he turned on his heel and walked out, the door chimes sighing once more as the night swallowed him whole. I stood there frozen for what felt like an eternity but was probably only a minute, the paperback forgotten in my whitening knuckles, waiting for the adrenaline to ebb, for the rational part of my brain to kick in and laugh it off as some elaborate prank or mistaken identity. It didn't. The fear clung like the chill outside. I forced myself to the monitor station, cycling through the exterior cameras. The parking lot was empty, no car pulling away, no silhouette vanishing into the shadows of the mesquite trees lining the road, no dust cloud from tires on gravel. Just the low, incessant hum of the coolers and my own breathing, suddenly too loud, too ragged in the sterile quiet of the store. 3:05 a.m. The chime dinged again, sharper this time, cutting through the tension like a blade. Two men burst in, hoodies pulled low over their faces, casting their features in deep shadow under the fluorescent glare. The first was lanky, tall, and wiry, moving with the predatory grace of someone who'd done this before. The second was stocky, built like a linebacker gone to seed, his breaths coming in controlled huffs as he scanned behind them, as if expecting pursuit from the empty night. There was no pretense of shopping, no casual browse, they were here for business, and it wasn't snacks. Before I could even draw breath to speak, the lanky one stepped forward, yanking up his sleeve to reveal the stubby barrel of a shotgun, muffled in a thick cloth rag to silence the telltale click. "Office in the back," he growled, voice flat and commanding, "no room for negotiation. Lock yourself in. Don't do anything stupid, and you walk out breathing." My body locked up, muscles turning to stone as the stocky one vaulted the counter in one fluid motion, his boots thudding heavily on the mat behind me. He ripped open the cash drawer with familiar ease, fingers flying to the false bottom like he'd practiced the sequence in his head 100 times. Survival instinct finally kicked in, propelling me backward down the narrow hallway lined with stock boxes and a flickering exit sign, my sneakers squeaking on the tile. I stumbled into the cramped office, a windowless room with a desk, a safe, and shelves of paperwork, slamming the door and fumbling the lock with fingers that felt like sausages. Through the thin wood, I heard the chaos unfold in muffled bursts, drawers yanking open with metallic screeches, the register bell dinging as it was emptied, the sharp crash of glass from the locked vape display case shattering under what must have been a boot or the butt of the gun. Then, clear as a bell despite the barrier, the stocky one's voice, "Hurry it up, the bottom's safe under the register." He said it'd be there. My breath caught in my throat, a vice tightening around my chest. I hadn't exhaled since the shotgun appeared. Who was he? The pieces slammed together in that suffocating moment of panic, the windbreaker guy from earlier, the one who'd recited my life like a grocery list, who'd stared down the camera like he was casing more than the store. This wasn't a smash and grab by desperate junkies hitting a random stop on a late-night spree. This was orchestrated, down to the minute, the drawer, the safe. They weren't after the $20 in the till or the cartons of cigarettes. They wanted the hard drive tucked beneath the register, the one that stored weeks of footage, overrides, maybe even employee files if Riley was sloppy with backups. A cleanup job, pure and precise, and I was the expendable witness in the way. I fished my phone from my pocket with trembling hands, the screen blurring as I thumbed to emergency. 911, what's your emergency? The dispatcher's voice calm and professional on the other end. I whispered into the receiver, crouched in the dark office that smelled of old coffee and printer ink. Two men. Riley's quick stop, corner of Grant and Campbell in Tucson. They're robbing the place, one has a shotgun, please send help fast. Can you stay on the line and describe them? She asked, but I couldn't, my pulse was a drum line in my ears, drowning everything, and the clatter from the front grew louder, more frantic, like they were racing an invisible clock. I hung up, pressing my back against the door, knees buckling as I slid to the floor, every creak of the building amplifying into footsteps, every shadow through the door's small window a potential threat. What felt like an hour of hell was probably 5 minutes, the chime dinging as they exited, the door slamming shut, then an oppressive silence that pressed down heavier than the raid itself. A soft scrape on the linoleum outside the door, deliberate, testing, then nothing. I didn't move until the sirens wailed closer, red and blue lights painting the walls through the front windows like a chaotic strobe. When the cops finally kicked in, guns drawn, commands barking, I unlocked the door on legs that barely held me, nearly colliding with a flashlight beam that blinded me momentarily. They swept the store methodically, room by room, their radios crackling with updates, while I gave a statement that tumbled out in fragments: the scout, the robbery, the safe. They bagged shell fragments from the broken case, logged the missing drive and cache, dusted for prints that yielded nothing useful. Pros, one officer muttered, shaking his head. Knew exactly what they wanted. Likely an inside tip or prior recon. I didn't argue, but I knew it was deeper, darker, the windbreaker man's smile lingering in my mind like a ghost. I didn't go home that night. Sat in the back of a squad car until the sun crested the Catalina mountains, painting the desert gold, staring at the abandoned strip mall across the street, its faded signs flapping in the morning breeze, half convinced the denim jacket would step out from behind a dumpster. His voice replayed on loop, easy, intimate, like he'd been flipping through my life's photo album for months. By 7 a.m., my boss, a grizzled guy named Hank who cared more about inventory than people, showed up in his pickup, face twisted in annoyance as he surveyed the damage, muttering about insurance deductibles and whether I'd secured the lotto scratchers properly before the chaos. I quit right there, words spilling out before I could second guess, find someone else. Drove straight to my apartment, a low-slung building with peeling stucco and a pool that hadn't seen water in years. Blasted every light, checked closets with the tire iron in hand, peered under the bed like a kid scared of monsters, showered with the curtain half open. Sleep came in fits, haunted by shadows that knew my name. If they'd wanted me silenced, I'd be in a ditch with the saguaros. Why let me live? Because I was irrelevant, a prop in their script. They'd mapped my routines, the solo shifts, the quiet nights, the predictable breaks for a smoke I didn't even take. I scrubbed my social media that day, locking profiles, deleting tagged photos from high school parties, old check-ins at the clinic where mom worked. What I dismissed as paranoia was now survival protocol, a shield against eyes I couldn't see. The cops never followed up with substance, just a generic report, no arrests, the incident buried under bigger city crimes. It never made the local news, just a blip in police logs about a commercial burglary. 2 weeks later, the sighting that iced my blood. I'd crashed at my buddy Nate's place after a day shift at a warehouse gig I'd taken temporarily. He pulled nights at his family's auto repair shop on the east side. We were in the back office during his break, feet up, shooting the breeze over bad coffee, when I glanced at the wall of monitors cycling through the yard cameras. There he was, windbreaker, hands in pockets, standing motionless by the stack of used tires in the alley, staring at nothing, the sodium light casting his shadow long and distorted like a specter from an old western ghost town. I froze, coffee spilling on my lap. Nate, that guy. You know him? He leaned in, squinting at the grainy feed. Nah, never seen him. Why? I couldn't explain without sounding unhinged. Just stared until the camera switched views. When it looped back, the spot was empty, no departure, no vehicle kicking up dust, no trace. Nate shrugged it off as a glitch or a homeless dude, but I bailed early, driving home with one eye on the rear view, heart racing at every headlight. It didn't feel concluded, it felt like a pause, a breath held before the next move in a game I didn't know the rules to. That was the final glimpse. No more mysterious visitors, no anonymous calls with heavy breathing, no unmarked sedans idling outside my building. just an eerie void. And in that void, terror bloomed anew. Was the obvious threat scarier, or the uncertainty of whether it had truly vanished? A full year has passed since then. I bolted from Tucson, landing in a small town outside Phoenix with a day job at a distribution center, loading trucks from dawn to dusk, no nights, no solitude under buzzing lights. New email address, new phone number, new routines that I vary on purpose, different grocery stores, random routes home, parking spots rotated like a paranoid chess game. I keep a baseball bat by the front door now, propped against the wall like a silent sentinel, and the porch light burns all night, every night, casting a warm glow that does little to chase the shadows from my mind. There are still those 3 a.m. wake-ups, sweat-soaked sheets, convinced I hear a soft chime or footsteps on gravel outside. I triple-check locks, skin the back seat of my car before sliding in, avoid walking alone after dark even for mail. It's a weird existence, feeling like hunted prey in a world oblivious to the hunter's trail. Most folks think robbery victims are just unlucky, or lucky to survive, wrong place, wrong time. But sometimes it's calculated, personal in its impersonality. You're not the target, you're the obstacle, and they've already memorized how to step around you. That's the lesson etched in my bones. Real danger doesn't always thunder in with demands or violence. Sometimes it's the quiet observer who smiles, learns your patterns, and walks away, knowing they hold all the cards. In our hyper-connected age, privacy isn't just a right, it's a fortress. Break your routines, trust that instinctive chill down your spine, especially when the world falls unnaturally silent. Because the hunt might be over, or it might just be waiting for the next quiet night. They say you never truly appreciate how isolating a building can be until you're the sole living soul echoing through its corridors after dark. That realization crept into me during my initial weeks patrolling Sunset Plaza, a modest 12-story office tower in downtown Spokane, Washington, where the Spokane River murmurs nearby and the winter winds howl off the surrounding hills like restless spirits. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was oppressive, a static hum that burrowed into your thoughts, amplifying every creak of settling concrete or distant elevator ding. I'd taken the security gig after my divorce papers finalized and my small landscaping business crumbled under a record snowfall that buried clients in a lawsuit from a slippery sidewalk mishap. I needed stability, anonymity, a place where no one pried with "how are you holding up?" questions. Midnight to 8 a.m. guard duty fit like a glove. Sunset Plaza wasn't glamorous, just accountants crunching numbers on 3, a dental practice on 6, a fledgling app startup on 5 with bean bags and energy drink fridges, pretending to disrupt. Commuting. Nothing screamed high-value target. The routine was straightforward: monitor the lobby cams from the booth, complete 3 full building sweeps, log any anomalies like a forgotten light or prop door. Lock the main entrance at 10 p.m. sharp, ensure the place was empty by 11. I relished the control, the quiet dominion over empty halls that smelled of industrial cleaner and faint coffee ghosts from the day shift. That changed on my 11th night, a crisp November evening where frost already etched the windows. 12:38 a.m. I was midway through my second patrol, flashlight beam cutting through the dim emergency lighting on the 4th floor, when I paused at the lobby feed on my portable tablet. A gray sedan idled beneath the malfunctioning street lamp across Pine Street, not parked illegally, but lingering, engine purring softly, exhaust pluming in the cold like breath from a hidden mouth. 2 figures inside, motionless, no interior light, no conversation visible through the tinted glass. I dismissed it as Spokane's brand of nocturnal oddities, maybe Uber drivers waiting for a fare or insomniacs staring at nothing. Logged the plate partially, snapped a blurry photo with my phone for the report, and continued my rounds, boots echoing softly on the marble. But they returned every night thereafter, same time slot, same vehicle, same statuesque occupants. It evolved from curiosity to a chilling pattern, a ritual that gnawed at the edges of my sanity. By the end of week 3, I brought it to my supervisor, Carl, a portly man with a clipboard adorned in Seattle Seahawks stickers and a perpetual coffee stain on his shirt, who waved it off with a grunt. Public street, Drew. Not our jurisdiction. If they're not breaching or vandalizing, don't poke the bear. Focus on the building. But trouble doesn't announce with fanfare, it simmers in the prolonged hush, building pressure until something gives. It was a rainy Tuesday night, 12:51 a.m., when the dam broke. The downpour had just tapered to a drizzle, streets glistening under the amber glow of sodium lamps, reflecting like shattered mirrors. I stepped out the side entrance for a quick breath of fresh air. Though I'd quit smoking 8 months prior after a health scare, I still kept an emergency cigarette tucked in the glove compartment of my truck, a crutch for moments like this when the building's emptiness pressed too close. 5 minutes, no more. I paced the loading dock, inhaling the petrichor mixed with distant river dampness, watching water drip from the awning in rhythmic plinks. Re-entering through the employee ramp, my beam caught it immediately. The fire exit door at the south stairwell hung ajar, its latch bent at an unnatural angle, the heavy-duty padlock sliced clean with what must have been bolt cutters. No alarm triggered because the system was wired for pull, not cut. My skin prickled as I radioed it in quietly, heart rate climbing. Back at the security booth, a glass-enclosed nook with monitors wall-to-wall, I scrolled the feeds with sweating palms, rewinding to the breach timestamp. There, at 12:43 a.m., 2 figures slipping through the mangled door, one carrying a black duffel that sagged with weight, the other clutching a metallic tool that glinted, crowbar, maybe, or something sharper. They moved with leisure, no hurried glances, no whispered urgency. They knew the layout, the blind spots, the patrol gaps like they'd walked it in daylight. Then the feeds dissolved into static snow for exactly 20 minutes, every camera inside the building blanked out in perfect sync. When they flickered back, the intruders were gone, exited clean, no trace on the exterior cams either. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone calling it in. Police arrived in 9 minutes, sirens muted to avoid spooking them if they lingered, officers fanning out with flashlights that danced like will-o'-the-wisps in the rain-slick halls. They reviewed the partial footage frame by frame. The young cop, fresh-faced and earnest, paused on one clip at 12:44 a.m., one intruder strolling casually past the booth window, mere inches from where I'd reclaim my seat moments later, his hooded face turning slightly toward the glass as if waving hello to an empty room. Corporate descended like a storm the next day, suits from the management firm grilling me in a conference room that smelled of stale donuts in desperation. They dissected my routines, exact patrol times, break durations, even bathroom logs from the keycard swipes. It was an outright accusation, but the suspicion hung thick. They wondered if the night guard had a hand in it, if loneliness bred greed. I wasn't involved, but the doubt stung. The fourth-floor accounting firm confirmed the worst, their secure server room access during the blackout window, cloud data wiped remotely, physical backup drives pried from the rack and vanished, passwords reset to lock out the legit users. It wasn't petty theft, it was a scalpel strike. The firm had once audited a massive agribusiness conglomerate, the kind with offshore accounts and NDAs thicker than phone books, settling whistleblower claims with 8-figure hush money. Whatever was on those drives, financial trails, perhaps, or dirt on executives, was worth the risk, and the intruders had exploited my one slip, those 5 minutes outside. After the dust settled, protocols evolved overnight, cameras upgraded to redundancy, motion sensors on every floor, a second guard hired for overlapping shifts. But I stayed on, stubborn or masochistic, needing to stare down the darkness, to prove it hadn't broken me. Weeks blurred into a new normal. I banished outdoor breaks entirely, pacing inside instead, varying my sweep paths nightly to avoid predictability. Pepper spray clipped to my belt, a heavy mag light that could crack skulls if needed. And I started noticing the anomalies, subtle as whispers from the building's bones. A motion alert pinging on the 6th floor at 2 a.m. when the dentist's office was vacant, a faint scuff echo on the 9th where no one belonged, doors that I swore I'd locked found ajar by morning. Nothing concrete, no footprints in dust or fingerprints on handles, just fragments that kept sleep at bay. 1. Midnight, the freight elevator groaned to life without a call button pressed, its cables whining like a distant scream. The monitors showed no activity, but I followed the sound on foot, stairs 2 at a time, arriving breathlessly as the doors slid open on 4, the breached floor. The hallway stretched empty under emergency reds, but there on the carpet, a single boot print, tread distinct, mud still damp from the rain outside, pointing toward the server room like an arrow from the shadows. I searched every office, every supply closet, flashlights sweeping corners that harbored only dust bunnies and forgotten files. Nothing. They'd been inside again, or never left echoes of their presence to taunt. After that, I insisted on shift overlaps, refusing solo full building laps. I left a digital recorder running in the booth during any absence, capturing the hum of fence and the occasional drip from a leaky pipe. And once, reviewing the tape over coffee that tasted like ash, I heard it, breathing, slow and deliberate, not mine, not the day cleaner's, just outside the glass, as if someone pressed close, watching the empty chair. Months dragged on. The police file closed with a shrug, professional intrusion, likely corporate espionage, targeted hit. No suspects, no leads beyond my partial plate that traced to a rental under a fake name. They called me lucky for surviving unscathed, but luck doesn't leave muddy prints in sealed buildings. I still walk those halls nightly, the second guard a welcome shadow, but safety feels illusory, a thin veneer over the abyss. I double-check every exterior window for lingering sedans, scrutinize the monitors like enemy lines in a war zone, and I haven't touched that emergency cigarette, not even in the darkest moments. Because here's the hard truth I carry, they weren't there to rob blindly. They hunted a vulnerability, a crack in the armor of routine, and when they found my 5-minute lapse, they didn't just exploit it, they claimed it, owning the night I thought was mine. Malevolence doesn't always force entry with brute force. Sometimes it patiently awaits the moment you turn the key yourself. I've always gravitated toward the night side of life, not out of some brooding persona or hidden trauma, but because the dark strips away pretenses. After midnight, people are too exhausted to maintain facades. You see the raw edges, the truths they hide in daylight. That's especially true in a place like the Ember, a subterranean club tucked in the industrial underbelly of Cleveland, Ohio, where the Cuyahoga River's polluted ghosts linger in the air and the bass thumps like a second heartbeat. No flashy signs out front, no online presence, just word of mouth for those in the know, drawing crowds that pack the dim space with sweat, strobe lights, and cash-only transactions at the bar. I started bussing tables there 6 months ago, midnight to close, the gig fitting around my community college classes in graphic design. It kept my head down, literally, wiping spills, hauling trash, mopping floors sticky with spilled drinks, while paying enough to cover rent in a walk-up apartment that overlooked rusted train tracks. Cleveland isn't kind to dreamers on a budget, but the Ember's tips and crumpled bills made it workable. I'd navigated high school skirmishes by staying invisible, processed my mom's cancer battle and funeral without crumbling publicly, and now I ghosted through shifts the same way. That Saturday night unfolded like countless others, the air thick with vodka fumes, cheap perfume, and the metallic tang of overheated bodies. I clocked in at 11:50, tied on my black apron stained from previous battles, and dove into the fray. The DJ had the walls vibrating with deep house tracks, booths overflowing with clusters laughing too loud, dancing too close. My rhythm was automatic, weave through the crowd with a tray of empty glasses, dodge flailing arms, collect tips in a jar that clinked promisingly. Around 1:15 a.m., amid the chaos, I noticed him in the far back booth, half hidden in shadows cast by a flickering red wall sconce. Skinny kid, mid-20s, in a clinging white t-shirt damp with sweat or spilled drink, his leg bouncing like a piston under the table, eyes darting as if expecting a ghost to materialize. I only registered him because of what followed, a couple sliding into the seats across from him without invitation. The man was older, mid-40s, sharp in a tailored black suit that screamed money, his watch catching the strobes like a warning flash. The woman beside him was silent, elegant in a sleek dress, her role clearly observer, The suited man leaned in close, murmuring something low and intense that drained the color from the kid's face in seconds. The kid's hands trembled visibly, nodding in quick, desperate jerks like a puppet with cut strings. Then, as abruptly as they arrived, the couple stood and melted back into the pulsating crowd, vanishing like smoke through a vent. That was my first encounter with David, name learned later, just a fleeting oddity in a night full of them. The shift blurred onward in its usual haze of clinking ice, shouted orders, and the occasional scuffle broken up by bouncers. Around 2:10 a.m., I shouldered a bulging trash bag for the alley run, the back door creaking open to a light Cleveland drizzle that misted the air and slicked the pavement. The alley was a narrow canyon of brick walls and overflowing dumpsters, lit by a single buzzing bulb that cast jaundiced pools of light. I heaved the bag toward the bin and nearly tripped over a sprawled form, David, face down on the wet concrete, a dark pool spreading from his head like ink in water, his body twitching in erratic spasms as if electricity still coursed through him. No one else in sight, just the rain pattering softly and distant bass muffled through the door. Panic surged, but instinct overrode. I dropped the bag, yanked off my flannel shirt, and pressed it hard against the gushing wound at the back of his skull, the fabric soaking through instantly with warm stickiness. My free hand fumbled the phone, dialing 911 with fingers slippery from blood and rain. Man down in the alley behind the Ember on East 55th, head injury, bleeding bad, unconscious but breathing. The operator's calm questions blurred as I crouched there, whispering encouragements into the night. Hang on, buddy, help's coming, stay with me. His hand gripped my wrist once, vice tight, fingers cold and desperate, then slackened. Medics arrived in a flurry of lights and shouts, loading him onto a stretcher with practiced efficiency. One paused to clap my shoulder. You kept pressure, that probably saved his life. I didn't feel heroic, just numb, soaked to the bone, the metallic scent of blood clinging to my skin like a curse. Back inside, the club throbbed on oblivious, laughter, music, bodies grinding as if no one had nearly died steps away. Clocking out at 4, Malik, one of the bouncers, built like a tank with a surprisingly gentle voice, pulled me into the storage room amid crates of liquor. His face was grim under the single bulb. You know who that kid was? I shook my head, still tasting rain and fear. David Russo. Little brother to Tony Russo. The name landed like a gut punch. Tony Russo, East Side legend, the kind whispered in bars with lowered voices. Ran underground gambling dens, loan sharking that ended in broken knees, gun trafficking that supplied half the city's shadows. Cross him, and you didn't end up in headlines, you vanished into Lake Eerie or a shallow grave in the Cuyahoga Valley. David had apparently done something unforgivable. Sleep evaded me that night in my apartment, the bloodied flannel balled in the sink, stains blooming darker as I scrubbed futilely. Every closure of eyes replayed the scene, the pool spreading, the twitch, the grip that felt like a final message unspoken. The next shift, I showed up head down, mop in one hand, industrial cleaner in the other, moving through the motions like a ghost in the machine. That's how you survive in Cleveland, keep pushing, or the city swallows you. Second trash run of the night, same alley, same flickering light casting demonic shadows on the bricks. Two men leaned casually against the wall, hoodies low, faces obscured in gloom. One flicked a lighter, igniting a cigarette with deliberate slowness, the cherry glowing like a malevolent eye. You talked to the cops, the first asked, voice even, almost conversational. Just called for the ambulance, I replied, trash bag heavy in my grip. The second stepped closer, smile slicing through the shadow but holding no warmth. Smart. That's all you saw, a drunk kid slipped on the wet curb, cracked his head. Nothing more. I didn't nod, didn't speak, the message was clear. They pushed off the wall and sauntered into the darkness, footsteps fading into the drizzle like they had all the time in the world. In that instant, invisibility shattered. I was entangled, a loose thread in their web. Detectives showed 3 nights later, just as the last patrons stumbled out, the club echoing empty. 2 of them, one young, idealistic eyes gleaming with a belief in justice, the other older, world-weary, lines etched deep from too many unsolved cases. They cornered me by the bar, notepads ready. "What exactly did you witness in the alley?" I stared at the mop bucket, water swirling pink from residual stains. "Found the kid alone, head bleeding. Called it in. Didn't see anyone else." They pressed, voices sharpening. "No attackers? No voices, no scuffle?" "Nothing," I lied, the word tasting like ash. They exchanged glances, handed a card with a vague call if memory jogs, and left. Courage didn't resurface, silence felt like the only armor, though it chained me to complicity. I still bus tables, still trudge home at 3 a.m. through streets slick with rain or snow, every shadow a potential threat, every slowing car a heartbeat skip. The flannel hangs in my closet, washed twice but the stain eternal, a relic I can't discard. David's fate is rumor, relocated upstate, or silenced permanently, no one at the Ember speaks his name anymore. The club pulses on, but I move cautious, eyes scanning crowds for familiar hoods. A reckoning looms, maybe next month, maybe in a year, forcing the choice, speak and risk the lake, or swallow and survive. I hope for bravery when it comes. But for now, head down, eyes open, doing right isn't always a roar, sometimes it's a whisper in the dark, alone and terrifying. Silence in service of fear doesn't safeguard, it shackles. I never realized how deafening silence could be until it stalked me all the way home. My name's Samantha Clay, 27, hailing from Birmingham originally but settled in Mobile, Alabama, working the ER front desk at Bay Ridge General Hospital on the night shift. It's not glamorous, behind bulletproof glass, fielding chaos from midnight onward, but it pays reliable, keeps the mind occupied, and I'm good at the calm facade, the steady voice directing stretchers or calming frantic families. Nights teach appreciation for the predictable unpredictability, monitor alarms blending into symphony, nurses' hurried steps, doctors barking orders for labs or scans. The parade of humanity, drunks with mystery aches, college partiers with alcohol-fueled injuries, the rare soul teetering on the edge of life. It all feels manageable from my station, name tag pinned, forms at the ready. That Wednesday night started tame, the Gulf humidity seeping even into the air-conditioned lobby. A fender-bender duo around midnight, a dehydrated teen from a beach party, an elderly gentleman with indigestion mistaken for a heart attack. Around 2:50 a.m., midway through my fourth coffee, black, no sugar, the kind that jolts like lightning, I looked up as a man approached the desk. Early 40s, impeccably dressed in slacks and a light blue button-up, hair slicked back as if for a formal event, but his stillness unnerved me. Not aggressive or fidgety, the opposite, too composed, like a statue that had learned to walk. "Looking for a patient," he said, voice measured, eyes locking mine without blink. "Name?" I typed routinely. "Hannah Smith." Common as dirt. System search, nothing. "Sorry, sir, no admission under that name tonight." "Wrong hospital maybe?" He stared a second longer than comfortable, then that empty smile crept across his face, not hostile, just void. "I see. Thank you." He turned and exited through the automatic doors, swallowed by the parking lot lights. Brushed it off, confused visitors happen hourly. Shift wrapped at 3:15, I grabbed my bag. Bid goodnight to Mara the charge nurse, and headed to the staff lot, a dimly lit expanse bordered by palms swaying in the breeze off Mobile Bay. That's when I saw the black pickup, older model with a lifted suspension, parked crooked across from my sedan, the only other vehicle in sight. And there he was, leaning against the driver's door, arms folded, staring directly at me with that same unnerving calm. No wave, no approach, just observation, like a predator sizing prey from afar. Chill raced my spine. I quickened pace without breaking stride, keys ready, sliding into my car and locking doors before buckling. He hadn't moved an inch. I peeled out, mirrors checked obsessively, no tail. Or so I believed. My home was a basement apartment in an old duplex on Dauphin Street, tucked behind overgrown azaleas and a sagging chain-link fence, the kind of secluded spot I once loved for its quiet removal from the world. That night, it felt like a trap. 3:30 a.m. when I pulled into the gravel drive, engine off, sitting in the dark listening to ticks cooling, convincing myself it was coincidence, paranoia from an odd encounter. Gut screamed otherwise. Path to the door narrow, lined with ferns that brushed like fingers, key and lock, push inside, slam and bolt, deadbolt, chain, every barrier. Silence. Then tap 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 on the peephole glass, gentle, insistent, patient as a heartbeat. Not a knock demanding entry, a probe. I backed away, phone out, dialing 911 in a whisper, someone outside my door, followed from the hospital, just tapping. Trying to enter? No, standing there. Cops in 10, lights swirling silent. I cracked the door to uniforms sweeping flashlights. No sign, no footprints in the damp soil, no truck, no lurking figure. I started doubting my sanity until an officer called from my car. "Ma'am, you drove straight home?" Nod. He opened the back door. Seat indentation, fresh, as if weight had settled for the 20-minute drive. And on the inner handle, a long, dark hair, not mine. He'd been inside the whole time, a silent passenger in the shadows. Sleep was impossible the next day, perched on the couch with blinds drawn, lights blazing, every pipe creak a footstep, every passing car a threat. Called in for day shift permanently, no explanation beyond personal reasons. They assumed burnout. Police report filed, hospital footage showed him enter, inquire, exit calm, no plate on the truck, no prints, no ID. Ghost. Moved apartments in under 2 weeks, to a high-rise across town with doorman and cameras. Pepper spray, door alarm, locks changed thrice. Fear lingers like humidity. Back seat checks ritual, twice sometimes. A month, then 2, no contact. Almost believed it ended, another mobile weirdness, until the plain envelope in mail, no return. Inside, Polaroid, grainy but unmistakable, me at the desk, head down typing, shot from outside the glass, timestamped that night. He'd watched long before approaching. Photo to cops, nothing actionable, no prints, no nearby cams. Stay vigilant. I do. Days now at a different clinic in Biloxi. Motion light and hall, peephole double checks, no underground parking. Mostly better, but late drives home, red light stops, I feel eyes in the mirror, just beyond sight. Terror isn't the tap or the photo. It's the restraint. He didn't rage, pursue, force. Waited, calculated, silent, stealing my illusion of anonymity. We fear the loud monster, but the quiet watcher erodes deeper. Trust the neck prickle. Believe fear. Survival listens. Night shifts in a children's hospital weave serenity and sorrow into a delicate tapestry. After midnight, the 3rd floor of Riverview Children's in Portland, Oregon, hushes to a lullaby of soft beeps and parental whispers. The Willamette Rivers murmur a distant soothe outside rain-streaked windows. Parents doze in recliners, kids dream under blankets printed with cartoons. 5 years ago, I'd have scoffed at calling this home, but as Nicole Hayes, Night RN at 34, it's my sanctuary, meds dispensed, vitals charted, fears soothed in fluorescent calm. Most nights routine, predictable as tides. Until that early Monday, 2:22 a.m., log entry fresh, sitting with Jordan, the new nurse, quick-witted and evidence-bound. Knock. Soft. 3 taps. Rhythmical, from Hall C, the wing gutted after a flood 2 years back, walls water-warped, budget axed renovations. Pipes? No, intentional, like a child seeking permission. Hear that? Jordan glanced up. Old building. But unease stirred. We ventured, flashlights cutting gloom. Air in Hall C stale, mold tinged with faded antiseptic. Walls bubbled paint like blistered skin, lights flickering hesitant. Room 312, door ajar, sliver of light revealing a spotless wheelchair center floor, and beside, one red sneaker, small, unlaced. Approached slow. Jordan hovered back. Breath synced. Wall base, crayon scrawl, when can I leave? Heart thudded heavy. Giggle, high, fleeting, behind. Spin. Empty. Jordan bolted, nope, not today. Desk retreat. Monitors, disused rooms offline, but 3:15, sealed post-flood, heart rate blipped 6 seconds. Reported to all, supervisor, maintenance, security. Glitch. Wiring check. Chair? No inventory match. 2 days, dad from 305, ashen, red ball rolled into daughter's room, from Hall C. No one there. Daughter wept, shadow girl done playing. Weeks escalated, phantom lullabies down vents, toys relocated overnight, crayon messages in closet backs, stick figures pleading. Knocks persistent, 3 always. Lingered to 5:40 a.m. once, shift lag. Passing Bart Hall C, metal door now, 3 taps. Giggle like air escaping joy. Delved archives off clock, Lily Harper, 6, admitted 2018 for leukemia. Died 3:12 overnight. Mom vanished after. Notes, patient asks daily to go home. Final, passed during rounds. Post-mortem monitor activity noted. No action. Sealed for Renos, storage shifted basement, lights killed eternal. Quieter now, but waited, like pause before sob. Past the barrier, hear her, not nightly, but enough. 3 knocks. Whisper, when can I leave? Reply, soon, Lily. Not all spirits malice. Some unfinished chapters. Living mourn, forgotten too. Silence conceals. Knock comes, answer with kindness. Peace in seeing the unseen. And in the dead of night, a sealed room's monitor flickers alive once more, a faint heartbeat pulsing, as if waiting for the nurse who remembers to check.